Good morning, everyone. So today is your next Blue Lotus Health video. We're going to talk today about the 3 Jiaos. So the 3 Jiaos means the 3 burners of the body. So that's the upper burner, the middle burner, and the lower burner from the navel down. It may help to know that they have actually found both the middle jiao as an organ called the mesentery, and they have found the lower jiao, or the whole jiao, as the interstitium. You may also think of the upper jiao possibly as the mysterious pars, which would then be the claustrum neuron, which has also been found. However, realistically, it is the whole upper torso. The San Jiao system is about 1,000 years old. It is a diagnostic system that arose mainly to deal with conditions, warm conditions and summer damp conditions, so it's particularly pertinent now. There is actually a state where your energy can separate, especially between the middle and the lower jiao, basically at the girdle vessel, right along the belt and waistline. And that condition needs to be intervened with acupuncture in order to really align them. It is possible to do with Qigong or meditation, however, it's a little bit tricky to achieve. It's a little bit easier with acupuncture to actually get the two. Another way of talking about these is because the San Jiao is a fire and water organ, and the top of the body is more fire, and the bottom of the water is bottom of the body is more water, and the lower jiao is associated with the kidneys, which is associated with the water phase. Is that the disunion of the middle and lower jiao could be an issue of the fire and water, whereas the disunion of the upper torso and the middle of the torso would be considered more about fire and earth. It's an interesting thing that originally the earth organ was not the stomach, but it was the small intestine, and the small intestine was itself, or the stomach itself was fire. And this somehow was switched later on by the spleen-stomach school. But I think that you would agree that the stomach organ really is probably more of a fire organ, being about acid, and most of the functions of spleen qi, as defined in traditional Chinese medicine, actually belong to the small intestine. Also, the small intestine is very proximal in the middle jiao to the uterus, and so all of the female functions of the spleen qi may be associated with actually the uterus and just being in that lower cavity. We do know that the body is actually divided into cavities. There are, for example, the pleural cavity at the top of the body, and you have the mediastinum is another cavity. These cavities have basically a membrane layer between them, so they do act as a barrier. It's interesting to note that the functions of the San Jiao include control of the fluid metabolism, which is basically the lymphatic system, and of the fascia and the interstitium, that is also inside the cells and between the cells. So the San Jiao is covering all of the fluid exchange inside the cells and between the cells. So in other words, it's controlling the movement of nutrients in and out of the cells. The San Jiao, being such a large organ, is particularly affected not just by water and fire issues, but it's also affected by parasitic issues. And that could be fungi, bacterium, yeast, candida, certain viruses, obviously worms and other real parasites, Lyme's disease. These kinds of things will bury themselves or even burrow into the San Jiao and become a real problem for later. To deal with San Jiao issues requires use of different formulas that deal with damp and heat, and mostly draining damp, but also there is some heat clearing that may be necessary depending on how turbid your coat is. So if you stick your tongue out and you look in the mirror and you have more of a yellow coat, or even it could be white, yellow, kind of cheesy. It could be yellow. It could be orange, or green. Of course, green would correspond more to gallbladder phlegm. which again is still an issue of the middle jiao. It's a different kind of classification. But all of these could be indicative of proliferation of phlegm or damp. Damp and phlegm are kind of like cousins to each other. You could consider phlegm to be the cooked version of the dampness, in that heat has been applied and turned the dampness into a more viscous turbidity that is inside the body. All of these things are best treated not with acupuncture but with herbs. Herbal tradition, of course, we have our paper that we have here at the clinic, or that you can email and ask for, about how to be a good herbal patient, because herbs are quite different than doing pharmaceuticals or supplements. They have a lot of different types of effects. They have transformative effects, draining effects, raising effects, clearing effects, drying, moistening. There's so many different types of ways that the qi is worked inside of the body with the herbs. And it's absolutely vital to have a sound understanding of each of the jiaos when looking at it, because they can be different. The top of the body can be full of pitta fire, that's from India, and the bottom of the body can be full of kapha water, basically. And that's not mutually exclusive. That's normal, because fire rises and water descends. It is important in general for keeping the San Jiao healthy. If you watch the video Strolling Under the Skin, where they actually scope the connective tissue down below, you will see that the connective tissue is supposed to be moist. It also needs to be exercised, because without exercise, the tissue has no reason to stay pliable, and it will start to bunch up and become yellow, basically becoming the source of damp heat all by its own. Of course, that would be a form of phlegm once it's actually round and yellow. And after a while, that bunches up, that can create cellulite. So these are all issues to do with the San Jiao. It obviously being the largest organ of the body, by far, it's going to be difficult to have a one-way prescribe or definition of what you should do for the San Jiao. Instead, you simply have to learn a whole lot of different things and deal with the issue for yourself. Okay, that's it for today. I'm signing off here at Blue Lotus. Hope you'll like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you later.